Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 150 episodes of mead making education, information, and entertainment. More than 100 guests have stopped by the Mead House, professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey, and brewers just like you and me have all visited to share their knowledge. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. You can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House, mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Well, let's see here. I think I left off where I fell through the front porch and was staring at a couple of raccoons who looked like they just saw a giant raccoon killer. Well, I stood up, and you should have seen how fast some ridiculous raccoons skedaddled. Wound up in the barn to fetch a hammer and some nails and some new planks for the porch, but when I plugged in the skill saw, all hell broke loose. I guess the blade protector thing got stuck in the up position, and that skill saw started dancing around on that porch like a rooster with its head cut off. I'm just trying to let them roosters next door to the strip club know that I'm thinking about them. Anyway, maybe that's enough of that too. So hey, welcome to the Mead House, and
I don't mind this chicken strip, dipped in some honey mustard.
There you go. Say it a little louder so they can hear you. Stupid roosters. Anyway. Wait, hey, welcome to the Mead House. Thanks for listening to episode number 217. And you know where to find us, themeadhouse.com. They're all listed up there on the left-hand side of the webpage. You know the routine: Stitcher Radio, iTunes, iHeart, the usual suspects. So check it out again, the front page of the website, themeadhouse.com. Hey, in this episode, it's braggot night here at the Mead House. And it's kind of cool, I think, to do like an all-night braggot thing here. Probably a little known, although not so much now. I think a lot of people are starting to get the hang of it and realize that braggots are a real braggot or a real mead style category in the BJCP guidelines. So we talk a lot about braggots here at the house, and we're going to dedicate this show here tonight to it. So braggot night here at the house. And then the social club. We got a whole night of social club here that we're going to do. We like doing that every once in a while. We get a lot of fantastic questions from a lot of listeners and people out there, mead makers, brewers alike, and figured we'd devote this whole entire show to it. So let's get on with it. All that and more here at the Mead House, and this is how it goes. Thanks to all the Mead House key holders who help keep everybody. Repeat after me. Thanks to all. Everybody's got this memorized already. All our listeners, all our loyal listeners. Repeat after me. Ready? Let's do this together. Thanks to all the Mead House key holders who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House key holder and help support. I see your lips moving, Ryan. Help support the show as little as $2 a month.
$2 a month.
We got some great thank you gifts to send out to you, plus a listing of keyholder only content. So get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or just click on the link in the show notes. What are we drinking tonight? Well, I'm on a medication. I'll tell you more about it later on in this series. But I got to kind of cut down on some of my alcohol consumption. So I haven't had anything for the last couple of days. So tonight is tequila night at my house. And so I drug out a bottle of one of my favorites. I do have favorite tequilas, okay? I don't have favorite bourbons, but I do have favorite tequilas. One of them is Avion 44. This is an extra añejo. It's a top shelf tequila. It's right now I mean, the prices of liquor have really skyrocketed, if you haven't noticed. Tequilas, this particular tequila I used to buy for right around $100 to $110. It's fast approaching $150 a bottle now. So Avion 44, extra añejo. It's got all of the typical bourbon elements in it. Nice barrel flavor. You can taste a little bit of that char, the vanillas, the caramels, baking spices like nutmeg and cinnamon. Some stone fruits, if you look a little deeper, and a really nice roasted agave. Nice aroma up front, all of those bourbon-like qualities. And this is aged for 43 months in an American oak barrel, and then it's aged in what they call petite barrels, and they're rotated. So Avion 44, very smooth. This makes a really nice before or after dinner drink. It's an easy sipper. Please don't put ice in it. And don't do like Ryan does and put it in a margarita. Not this one. This one's too good. But that's what I'm doing tonight, guys. So, Jeff, what did you put in your cup tonight, buddy?
So, as usual, I have two drinks in front of me. And the first one I'm really excited about. You know, we talked about a little bit at the top here how we're doing our part to put brackets on the map on the show.
Yep.
But there is another style of mead, so to speak, that I think we have been early and vociferous advocates for. And I got a great surprise today. I went to my local liquor store. It's a big one. I think it's probably the Kansas City equivalent of like a Total Wine, as I understand Total Wine works. But
yeah,
went through the little mead section. They have canned session meads at my local liquor store.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Wow.
They have canned session meads and ciders from, is it Hidden Moon or Moonlight? There's a couple different labels there because they've kind of branched out. And then from Superstition as well. And I was not paying a lot of attention in my excitement. I kind of just looked at some of the adjuncts here. What I actually brought home was a 4-pack of Superstition's cider, not their mead. But they got them in the same aisle because it's the same brewer. And, you know, it's not cheap. I think I probably spent about $25 for a 4-pack.
Wow.
But I feel like now that they're carrying it, I do have to do my part and support these guys once in a while. Because,
absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Session meads are on a shelf near me. And when we first started talking about these, because we were brewing a few of them and we had them in our glass, it was like, oh, yeah, no, this is nice. This isn't the heavy, stuff that you drink one and you're basically done for the night. You can have 2 or 3 of these over the course of an afternoon and just hang out and barely get a buzz.
Yeah.
So, in my first glass, I have the Superstition Meadery's Superstation, which is a cherry, ginger, and lime hard cider.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And amazingly enough, with all of those strong flavors, I'm still getting apple in this. Which,
wow.
Apple is a subdued flavor. Cherry can be a strong flavor. It can be a little bit subdued, but lime and ginger kind of just stick out there. And don't get me wrong, they're there too. And it's really nicely balanced, but the apple does not get left behind. So I kind of got to tip my hat to these guys because that probably was pretty tricky to pull off.
Those are not flavors that I would even put together, I don't think. There's a couple of them maybe. But all of those flavors, I wouldn't think of putting all of those together in one. That's amazing. That's pretty amazing. Right. And
it works really well together. It's a very pleasant drink. It's got the tartness from the apple and the lime. The ginger gives it a little zing. The cherry is there. It's sweet. It adds another dimension to it. I mean, I'm impressed. This is a seriously good beverage, and I couldn't be happier that we've got stuff like this on the shelves these days. My other glass is this is from New Belgium. This is a beer. This is the Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA. And
is it a black can?
It is it's a brown bottle.
Okay.
got a little. It looks like a skeletonized park ranger kind of illustration on the front. So let's see. This is a little heavier in the body than a normal IPA, but not by much. So it's got a good malt backbone to it, and it's also it's very hoppy. It's really forward with the citrus and the kind of piney notes to it. Pine finish is really strong. This is a pretty pleasant beer. This is one of the better IPAs I've had recently, I think, for sure. So yeah, enjoying this one as well.
My wife is the hophead in the house, and she drinks. There's one that's in a black can. It's got, I'm sure it's got voodoo on the label somewhere. I've only seen it in the cans. But she, if you were to make like chocolate covered hops, she'd love it. All right, she's like the hophead in the house. She likes anything that's just hopped right up there. So, Arrogant Bastard is her all-time favorite IPA. Yeah, that's her favorite. I mean, if you bought her 100 cases of it, she'd be happy as a lark. So, good stuff. So, Ryan, you after the conversation we had, I think it was last week, when we had, I think it was Rachel on, you were talking about like the hundreds of bottles.
Yeah.
Have
what
you
do you figure that was? 50 cases or something?
Yeah. So, which one of those 100 bottles did you pick tonight?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, JD. But first, Raven seems to like a lot of things. Raven likes porters.
Yep.
Raven likes stouts.
Yep.
Raven likes hops. I think Raven just likes good drinks.
Yep. She does that. Absolutely.
So it's Braggot night. We'll get into that in a minute. So of course, I'm drinking double fisting Braggot tonight. And the first one I opened up, I actually don't remember much about it. I remember that it was a Brew Firm base. I couldn't tell you which Brew Firm base it was. I mean, I have to go back in my notes. It's in there. I don't have those in front of me. I left it downstairs when I grabbed the bottle. But it's a Brew Firm base, and it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous, like, mahogany color with a cream white head. The mouthfeel is fantastic on this. But of course, I didn't just make it out of the can. I added honey. It almost tastes like, this is kind of a game. This is a game for me right now because I don't have my notes and I'm trying to taste what I taste. And it almost tastes like I have some Bochet honey in there. And I didn't know what I was tasting at first, but then I tasted that I did put cocoa nibs or cacao nibs. And is there a difference between cocoa nib and cacao nib? We'll get into that later. But one of the two. There's some kind
Chocolate.
of nib in there. Yeah, there's a nib in there. And I believe I probably put on oak. So it's probably some like French oak, some medium toast French oak, maybe dark oak toast French oak, and cacao nibs. And I don't know if the honey was Bochet or not. Maybe a portion of it was. But it's fantastic. It's delicious. It's got a little bit of bitterness. I don't even remember the hops. It's very smooth, very creamy. I already mentioned the mouthfeel. And the almost a butterscotchy flavor has developed in a really good way. Not like the butterscotch off flavor, but a really nice butterscotchy flavor has happened. So I like. I remember I drank this and I didn't care for it all that much right when I made it, but a couple of months in the cellar and it's really come around. I really enjoy it. In my second glass tonight, gentlemen, is another Braggot made with another Brew Firm can. This one I do know more about. This one was the Double Dam can, and I made it with 5 pounds of Western or Eastern buckwheat honey. And then, so it's got some funkiness to it. It's got some funkiness from that, and it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good. And actually, I got a question for Jeff. I'm gonna stop here and ask Jeff a little question. Jeff, I don't remember the hops I used. Maybe like Sterling Wolf or whatever that. I'm not saying it right, but you know the Wolf hop, and. So that's all I know, right? It's the Double Dam malt extract, hop malt extract, probably some wolf hops, some buckwheat honey, and the monastic yeast, and that's it. And damn it, if I'm not perceiving a slight minty flavor in it. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know what it is. I don't know the chemical compound off the top of my head that would create that. I'm going to let you think about that for a minute. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but you can think about why I might be perceiving a little bit of mint in there. I don't know.
So,
go ahead. If you're ready, go ahead.
Yeah. My first guess is that so Styrian Wolf, the hops you used are, if I remember right, they're probably like a hybrid of a couple different varieties, and there is another kind of in that Slovakian Styrian family, Styrian Bobek or Styrian Goldings. The Styrian Goldings don't so much have that minty character, but a lot of people tell me that they get a minty character from the cousin of that, the Eastern Goldings, as one of like the secondary or tertiary notes to it. So my guess is, out of the ingredients you listed, mintiness might be coming from hops.
That's what I thought too, and I knew you were the guy to answer the question. That's why we have him on the show. I'm going to be honest with you guys and listener land, like I always am. I don't hide my faults, the many faults that I make. Doubles are one of my favorite styles of beer, full stop. And they make one of my favorite styles of braggot, period. I don't love this one. It's good, right? It's not, there's no flaws. It tastes good, but I don't love it. And I tried to get a little cheeky, and I put in the buckwheat honey, thinking this will be fun. I should have gone something else. I should have used a different honey, because it's the honey and maybe the hops as well. I think that kind of I wonder if the hop bouncing off of the barnyard is creating this accentuating note that I'm perceiving as mint, but it's not something I'm going to replicate. I make double braggots. I've made them with mesquite. I've made them with orange blossom. I've made them with bowshade. I've made them with clover, wildflowers, and different honeys. And I'm going to go back to things I like. But that's okay, right? Because I've always talked about when you make a braggot, or a mead of any kind, frankly, that you do little tests to figure out how to get it to really where you want it. And the one little test here was kind of changing up the honey, and using this Eastern buckwheat honey, and that was my little test. And it's some people really enjoy it. People tell me it's great, they love it. That's awesome. I'm glad you do. Come back over. I'll give you a 6-pack. But it's not something that I'm going to definitely replicate. Okay, enough about that, because the drinks are good, and I am enjoying them. Tonight is one of my favorite formats of the show. One of my favorite formats of the show is Social Club Night, where we hear from Mead House Nation and answer questions of our listeners, and and try to do the best we can with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew houses, as Mr. J.D. Webb will say. Guys, we have a very special new listener to the show, and just recently happened upon Braggots and our show. So it didn't take long for me to as I was putting together the list of questions for tonight to acquiesce and put together a Braggot focused show. So in honor of this new listener. So I'm gonna, as we get going here, I'm just gonna lift my glass tonight and say, here's to you, Lady Braggot.
Lady Braggot, here's to you. Cheers, cheers.
All right, let's get into it. JD, did you have a chance to look at the list tonight? Do you have a place you want to start?
Yeah, I did. And it's going to be really interesting as we work down the list here tonight on the show. So let's get started. So how do I estimate the amount of nutrients needed in a braggot? That's an interesting question. There doesn't seem to be much information out there on the nitrogen content of malt extracts. I assume nutrients aren't required for braggots with lower ratios of honey because there are many beer recipes out there that use candy sugar as a fermentable additive with no added nutrients. So, of course, I mean, that's, well, we'll get to that. My next mead is going to be a 5.5 gallon braggot with 9 pounds of honey, 6 pounds of liquid malt extract for a target gravity of 1110. Belgian Ardennes, I guess, yeast. I have no idea. Ardennes, I'm just going to call her Belgian Ardennes. I guess if you're from Texas. Yeah. Oh, yeah, from Texas, it'd be Ardennes. So what's the ratio of honey to malt where I need to start thinking about nutrients? One thing that I wanted to say about going back up here to the candy sugar, you're only adding a very small amount. So, I mean, the amount that you are going to add really isn't a thought to me I've done that before when it comes to adding nutrients. So, Jeff, you're kind of the nutrient scientist around here. Malts have nutrients?
Malts have nutrients. For most beers in the beer world, you don't really need to worry about adding nutrient because, there's nitrogen in that grain, and the nitrogen comes out when you mash it. Sparge it, whatever you want to say. When you separate the sugars from the crap you're going to throw away or compost, the nitrogen comes with that. For the most part, most beers, unless you get into really, really heavy stuff like, imperial stouts or barley wines or things like that, where you're really pushing the ABV, nutrients isn't really something you even need to consider. Now, like you just mentioned, there are a few kinds of, Belgian beers where you want to throw in some candy sugar. But when you're doing that, you're throwing in half a pound?
And not much.
In the grand scheme of things, half a pound to between 8 to 12 pounds of grain. It's a drop in the bucket. And I don't think it makes that much difference that you really need to worry about nutrients. My rule of thumb for most braggots is basically to treat them like a fruit-heavy mead under the Toastna recommendations. So do your math, figure out what your nutrient addition should be based on your starting gravity or your bricks or whatever, and then cut that in half. Assume that the malt is going to contribute half of the nitrogen you need, and just provide the other half.
Yeah. So Ryan, your typical Ryan Braggot recipe, usually a 50-50 split down the middle. X amount of pounds of honey versus X amount of pounds of extract. Does it now when you do you're pretty much into the session style, so we're talking minimal here. right around 3 pounds, if I remember right, 3.5 pounds of honey, 3 or so pounds of the Pilsen malt, light Pilsen malt. Are you worried about nutrients at that point?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because in every batch, I put in a pack of Sun-Made raisins.
We're going to get letters.
Yeah, my God, the hate mail's coming. Okay. That was great. Oh, my God. Yeah, raisins.
So typically, I don't do any nutrients. I don't put in any nutrients. I don't need them. They're not required. For the big one, because I'm shooting for 5.5, 5 and 6% ABV, so I don't need it. Now, I'll tell you what I will do sometimes is sometimes I'll buy with the best of intentions. And Jeff, maybe this happened to you, but the best of intentions, I'll buy a pouch of liquid malt yeast. I'm sorry, liquid yeast. Yep. I'm confusing my ingredients. I'll buy a pack of liquid yeast. I'll put it in the fridge, and I will blow past the best buy date on it. And all of a sudden, oh great. Okay, so here's what I have. I have basically it's like a test tube or a vial of Y yeast beer nutrient, and it says, I don't know the ratio, like 1/4 teaspoon or something. And if I'm using a yeast that I know is, past its best buy date a little bit, I might do a starter. Guys, this is going to sound bad, but at Mead House North, I have not taken out the stir plate yet. So I really don't do big starters on a stir plate anymore, but I will throw in a little bit of nutrient. I'll throw in a little bit of nutrient with that yeast. Just try to perk it back up a little bit, and then pitch it. Or when I pitch it, I'll drop that in, and I haven't had any issues. Now, if I were trying to do a triple imperial braggot, clocking in at 15% or something, you're darn right. I'd build up a nice healthy starter. I might even do some Fermate O. And I'd make sure she had lots and lots of nutrients. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I became very sensitive about, and it's not my weight, by the way, is when a couple of times I've gotten to sit down with James Spencer and talk with him, and he doesn't really talk about it that much. Maybe he's not bragging about it anyway. He's got a remarkable palate, and he tasted a couple of mine and said that he could taste the nutrient, like too much nutrient had been put in, or maybe even the amount had been put, the correct amount had been put in, but he could pick up the nuances of it in there, and he gave me that feedback, and I really appreciate the feedback. Because I've mentioned I don't have an incredibly sensitive palate. I'm kind of middle of the road. I can pick up more stuff than some, but less than others. And because of that, I've also tried to pull back on some of those things that aren't needed. Like if it's not needed, get it out of here. So no, when you go for a standard strength, let's just say anywhere below 7-8% at least. If you're going somewhere below 7-8%, you probably don't even need any nutrients. You can put a pinch in if it makes you feel better, but just like you're seasoning a soup, a little less is more.
This guy is doing 9 pounds of honey and 6 pounds of liquid malt extract. So his ABV is going to be a little more than a 5%er. So maybe a half a teaspoon. Just to be on the safe side.
And I'm not, believe me, the good people at Y East have they've supported us in the past, but not enough to get a commercial. So this one's for free. And the easiest thing to do, go buy the Y yeast beer nutrient, because they do make a wine nutrient and they make a beer nutrient.
Yeah.
Go buy the beer nutrient and just do the dosing that's recommended on the bottle.
Yeah.
And just do the recommended dosing and move on and make your life easy.
There you go. I think we covered it from low ABV to high ABV there. So take your pick. This is kind of a related. Question with nutrients. A bit confused on how to use Voskovich for braggot and mead. Any advice? Yes, just put it in and use it. All right, specifically, I'm confused about pitch rates. I have a dry packet, Lallemand yeast additions. I'm using Tosna 2.0 with all 3 different nutrient additions. Nutrient staggering, do I have to? And what should my final gravity on the braggot be? Well, I'll answer that specific question. We have no idea.
True.
I mean, unless you can send us the at least minimal fermentables, there's no way that we could tell you what your final gravity is going to be on the braggot. So, to the folks out there asking questions, if you want us to be a little more thorough than that, make sure you put all of your ingredients in so that we can at least get an idea. But Ryan, so this is actually this may even be another. Well, we'll go with Ryan because this is gonna go right over to Jeff anyway, I think. So the Voskovich for braggots and meads. I mean, I love them. I like the from hot to cold. I mean, both degrees of temperature. Now, whether you're fermenting hot or fermenting cold, produces really amazing results. I don't care what you're making. I like it for braggots. When I'm using the Kvik, now I'm set up with a Primo cooling system for my fermenter. But when I use the Kvik yeast, I just turn the damn thing off. I don't even bother with it. In fact, I might even crank the heat pads up there on the bottom side of the fermenter and crank it up around 95, 98 degrees. So, but anyway, so. Voskovich for braggot and mead. Any advice?
So I want to jump. I'm going to let Jeff really take a lot of this question because he's the
sure,
guy for
yeah.
it. But I'm going to jump in on the back half of this because if you recall some advice, this was 4 years ago maybe. We had Michael Fairbrother on the show from. Is that Hidden Moon? No, not Hidden Moon. Moonlight. I'm sorry. Moonlight Meadery.
Moonlight Meadery, yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about braggots. And Michael Fairbrother was talking about how he made this, just delicious, like Russian Imperial Stout braggot that he's, aged for like a decade and, put in, Sam Adams barrels or something. I don't remember, but and how they'd only drink it on the full moon if it fell on an odd Sunday of a leap year or some crazy thing. But the point being, when we asked him about braggots, is he said, "Do not just treat it like a beer, not a mead." And what he means is. And what he was specifically saying, not what he explained, what he specifically explained was do not degas, do not, don't do that.
Right.
Thing, because you'll oxidize them all.
Right.
Maybe that Jeff will explain the science and why. So we're doing Tosna 2.0, and you're doing 3 different nutrients additions. I just be careful because I believe Tosna also calls for you to like degas. Or something like that when you're adding.
Week. Yep.
And so you don't want to do that with malts. Go look at any beer recipe, even like barley wine recipes, and they tell you just like don't touch it. Don't stir it. Don't knock it. Don't rock it.
Yeah.
Just let it go. So okay, if, maybe it's along the lines of like step feeding honey, how you step feed honey to get it all the way there. Maybe he's, or she, I don't know the person here, is going to just add these little additions, and maybe that's okay. I've never tried to do different additions to a braggot, so I can't speak to that. But I can tell you that I would not put your wand in there and try to degas while you're doing it. If you could see me right now, I'm gesturing the microphone throw over to Jeff.
There you go.
Okay, so let's break this down. I think the first part of this first question is regarding pitch rates, and he's specifically talking about the dry Voss Fike Beak, however we want to pronounce that, from Lallemand, which I've never used. I've always used the liquid from Omega, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as pitch rate goes, I understand, kind of in the same vein of that, cold ferment versus hot ferment. If you're going for those Kvike flavors, you probably want to underpitch. So you may want to take the recommended pitch rate, cut it in half, and just resign yourself. You're going to have a little bit longer lag phase and see how that works. That's probably as good a start as you're going to get, unless other people have specifically played with this particular version of the Voss strain and have better advice than I do. As far as using it goes, yes, do it. Yeah. Now, so with regards to that Tosna 2.0, which I do recommend, there's a couple points to remember. Now, when you're doing your calculations, there's a part where you have a little multiplier like 0.75 or 0.9 or 0.125, depending on the nutrient requirement of the yeast, and those are based on Lallemand wine yeasts. If you're going to ferment this hot, though, you need to be aware that Kvike is a nutrient hog. I've replaced that 0.75, 0.9, 1.25 multiplier with a 2 or a 4, and that's about where I feel like Kvike needs to be if you're running at like 95, 100 degrees for fermentation temperatures. It will absolutely eat up everything it can, and it needs the nutrients to do it. I have not played with it fermenting at like room temperature, or I guess the colder side, enough to know if it's still a nutrient hog at that level, or if you can get away with like the normal nutrient amount of the 0.9 multiplier, or the average, I guess. But yeah, no, be aware this guy will eat and eat and eat, and that by the same token, that rapid metabolism is part of what makes this a yeast that you can literally pitch to glass in 9 days, and that includes a day for carbonating and a day for flavoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of people on here talk about that, and pitch to glass, and in a week or so.
Right.
That's pretty damn good.
Now, Ryan did mention, for braggots, you generally don't want to degas because that can create oxidization.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I will say is that if you are going to do the staggered nutrient additions for Tosna, which I go back and forth on whether that's a good idea for a braggot. Part of me says just put it all in up front. Part of me says, space that out. Especially in a Kvike sense, where it's going to be eating so much so fast, I don't know that it would hurt to put it all in up front. But if you are going to stagger your nutrients, and you're using especially Fermento, you want to degas that before you put in a second or a third or your final dose. Because that fine powder the Fermento is made of is nothing but nucleation points. And if you have dissolved CO2 in your wort at that point, you are in for a meat explosion. That will be a mess you'll be cleaning up for an hour afterwards. Everyone I know has done that at least once.
Yeah.
That is the case where it's okay to knock some of that CO2 out of suspension and just kind of make your life easier in the long run. Incidentally, the idea behind this is that there are a lot of flavor compounds essentially in the grain itself, specifically, much like in apple juice, for example, that do react with oxygen. That's why, you know, the what do I want to say, cloudy cider, or the real cider you buy at the
the unadulterated fresh press. It's always brown looking.
It's always brown looking because there's oxygen interacting with those
exactly.
The proteins in the long chains and things like that. It's a similar idea. You know, that said, I've done that a couple times to stagger nutrients in a braggot, and I've not really noticed any major oxidization. From what I've been told, for most beers and the couple that I have experienced that were badly oxidized, you get this kind of like cardboard taste. That is, it's not like terrible, but it's not pleasant. No. You can identify it easily enough. I've never seen that from anything that I have. I've degassed a little bit for that purpose. When I first started with Tosna, I was ritualistic with that degassing, like twice a day for the first week, and we will do it every day, twice a day.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we just schedule that. I've gotten a lot more lackadaisical with my degassing since then. It's kind of it's the first week. I'm about to put a nutrient in. I better do that. And then, you know, the evening comes along and like, I degassed this morning.
Tired.
Do I need to? I gotta do this. I gotta mow the lawn. You know, and I don't think my meats are any the worse for it. Getting some of that out of
go ahead.
Getting some of that CO2 out of suspension is great, and I firmly believe that yes, the stalls that I experienced early in my mead making career were mainly because that the pH dropped some because I had that carbonic acid forming from all the dissolved CO2 in the water. Yeah. But I don't know that you need to be regimented with it. I think as long as you're doing it, you know, once or twice a day, at least every other day, you're probably going to be getting the benefit you need from it.
Yeah. You know, when it comes to this whole nutrient idea too, I don't know whether there's any hard, fast rule, because we have had plenty of people, both home mead maker and professional mead makers, stop by the house here and talk about just this very thing. I mean, there's a lot of them out there that, you know, don't use any sort of, you know, methodology other than just, you know, chuck it in all up front and be done with it. And then there are some that are hard, fast believers in the whole staggered nutrient addition thing and very scientific about it. And will sometimes usually produce the same results. So, you know, for a home mead maker, now, you know, I need to separate this from professional mead makers, because they need to develop methods that, you know, go from fermenter to bottle in a rather, you know, decent amount of time so that they can move the product. I get all that, okay? But so separating the home mead maker out from that, how important really is it? I mean, I think you got to take a look at your recipe and see what you're making first. You know, is it going to require, I mean, are you using so much honey that, you know, you're doing this big monstrous sweet thing that, might require some good attention to nutrients? I mean, I can talk about the 2 port projects. Dude, you talk about intense dealing with nutrients and dealing with, you know, coaxing a yeast up past its, you know, but not, you know, not overdoing the nutrients, because you didn't want that to come through, you know, in the final flavor. So, I mean, there's a whole science out there about that whole thing. But if you go back and listen to a lot of our shows for the home mead maker, we've had a lot of people that, you know what, toss it all up front. They've had great success with that. Plus, we've had, you know, a good number of people who swear by their Tosna thing and have also had, you know, great success with that. So we're not by any means the experts here. All we can tell you is what we've experienced in our own individual brew house, and of course, you know, reiterate what other guests have talked about here on the show. So, but do your homework, certainly. I mean, thanks for the questions. Obviously we enjoy it, but don't stop there. Don't just stop at the meat house and say, well, the guys in the meat house said I didn't have to do this. No. We'll give you some guidelines, but I want you to go out there and do some homework, do some research. Talk to some other people if you want, and then come to a consensus that I'm going to do it this way, and hopefully that'll produce best results for me. And that's kind of
really.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, producing the best results for me, because I'm the one that's going to be drinking it. Okay, I'm not making this for other people. I'm not making this for I'm not selling it. I'm not giving I'm making it for me to drink. So it's just a matter of something that I need to deal with. So
a couple thoughts. I think for a lot of this, we have come to the conclusion that separately or together that when it comes to things like nutrient additions and degassing and stuff like that, you've got to make your process work for you. You don't want to be working for your process.
Exactly.
This is something we're doing for fun. And to another point, I think honestly the only thing people should be like taking, the guys on the meat house said, seriously, is the guys on the meat house said I should try this and tell them what happened. I want you to do that and not question it. Otherwise, take everything we say with a grain of salt, because we're just in this just like you are.
There you go. All right. So I'm kind of digging this next one. All right. This is a question. Planning a butterscotch braggot, butter beer. Any tips? Usually that part of the question comes at the very end. So let's continue. Hey guys, I've been working on a recipe for a butterscotch braggot for a little bit, and I'd love some insight before I buy my ingredients. My partner is a huge Potter fan. No, not sure I understand that.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter? What's that?
It's a book in the film series. A film series made off the book series.
Not familiar. Is that like a kid thing? What am I missing here?
It was a kid thing like 20 years ago.
No, not in my house. Anyway, a huge. Okay, so all right. So, would you say Harry Potter?
Yeah,
Harry Potter.
I want to have to Google that. I guess huge Harry Potter fan. And after trying some of the butter beer at Universal Studios, he must be local because that's like right down the street from me. I thought I'd take a fair shot at making my own spin on it just before Halloween here. I looked over the video by doing the most. Link below. Okay, I get it. That must be a video called "Doing the Most."
It's a YouTube series.
Gotcha. Okay. Link below, and I've used some of the recipe as a jumping off point. I think the recipe is interesting, but I'd rather learn more into the beer aspect of butter beer rather than the hard soda that they've made. And thought a braggot might be an excellent middle ground. Here's what I have so far. All right. Here's the recipe, guys. 2.5 gallon batch. Now, this guy, okay, these are the kind of questions I like. Okay, you're asking specific questions here, and you're giving us the recipe. Excellent. 2.5 gallon batch, 3 pounds of Pilsen malt, 2 pounds of wildflower honey, Bochet, half a pound of caramel malt, 80, half a pound of honey malt, half a pound of oats, a half a pound of dark Belgian candy, a half ounce of Says hops, a half a pound of lactose in secondary, 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract in secondary, and the Lutra Kavik Omega from Omega. So, geez, Ryan, did you follow all that?
I did, JD, and
Butterscotch.
I really like this.
Yeah,
I do.
I like where this guy's going.
I do. I love questions like this, just like you do. first of all, I think this guy is on a wonderful start.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of critique on this. Jeff might completely disagree, and that's what Jeff does, and that's why we have him. But Jeff, I say that because you're so smart, and it's the yin and the yang between you and I. That's what I appreciate about you. And so I think he's after a hell of a start. I love that he's using the Pilsen malt, of course. The blank canvas, the Bow Shade honey makes a ton of sense. The Caramel 80, the honey malt, the oats for mouthfeel. The dark candy, I'm not sure what he's trying to get out of the dark candy.
I think he's looking for that. I think he's looking for that butterscotch flavor out of that dark candy. I don't know that he's going to get it from that though.
Yeah, and then the size, the lactose, the vanilla. So a couple of critiques on this, just more points of clarification. If we assume he's doing an all grain batch, if he's doing all grain, then he's mashing the Pilsen, the honey oats, the malts, and all those to get the Caramel 80 all together. That all sounds great. If he's doing the malt extract, it'd be 3 pounds of malt extract, and he'd be steeping, the Caramel 80, the honey malt, the oats. Oats steep a little bit different than they mash, so you gotta be careful with those. He says that here's the two things that I'd move around a little bit. Is I'd move the lactose to the boil. Just drop it at the very end of the boil. There's no reason to add lactose in the secondary. Just toss it in the boil, get it out of the way. And then I would add your honey though, after high krausen. Standard stuff we've always talked about. Standard stuff there. And then the vanilla extract in secondary. You can even add that in the bottling bucket if you really want. Just put it at the bottom of the bottling bucket, rack on top of it. Secondary is fine too, but throw it in the bottling bucket might just give more staying power. And then the Omega Lutra Kveik. I don't know. I might, I think I'd go butterbeer. I'm thinking creamy mouthfeel. I'm thinking a yeast that's going to drive more of that. Maybe some of the British varieties or something that's going to give you a little creamier mouthfeel. But I think you're on a hell of a start. I mean, this is a lot better than a lot of other things I've seen. Somebody once asked me if they could call me, they kind of off the cuff kind of threw me a nickname and said, "Oh, is that okay if I call you that?" I said, "Look, I've been called a lot worse by a lot better, so no problem there."
I think one of the things, you got to consider what makes butterscotch. Okay, it's a fairly distant cousin to the caramel, okay? But I think typically, correct me if I'm wrong here, but butterscotch, caramel is made with usually white sugar, okay? Where butterscotch is 99.9% made with a brown sugar and butter. So
right, or some kind of milk or or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the lactose comes in.
Okay, so Jeff, we need to get to the butter because butter is what makes butterscotch. Okay. All right. I mean, we've all had the what's that famous butterscotch candy? What's it called? Werner's or something?
I think so. Werner's.
Something like that, yeah.
Werther's original.
Yeah. Werther's, yeah. And it's got that butter. I mean, you can almost taste the buttery butter, in it. So how do you get to that level, okay? How do you get that buttery flavor into a braggot or at least this recipe here? I don't think the dark Belgian candy is going to do it. Go ahead.
I don't think so either. I don't think that's going to give us the butter flavor we're looking for. I'm not sure anything is really going to give us the butter flavor we want.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing off the top of my head that gives us butter flavor is diacetyl. I'm pretty sure we don't want that.
Right.
That's that movie theater popcorn buttery flavor that you get when your yeast is stressed out and fermenting probably too hot or not enough nutrients. And there's a few different ways to get that. But you probably don't want that. It's probably pretty nasty. And you probably would go, tastes like butter, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Looking at this recipe, to kind of follow what Brian said a minute ago, there's not a lot I can critique here. I think, he's got the ingredients lined up, and I might try this a couple of times and play with, a little more of this, a little less of that. But he's off to a great start. And kind of like what I was saying a minute ago, try it and report back. Tell us what you found out.
I'm wondering, Ryan, two things here. One, there is that brown sugar part, okay, that could be used. But then on the other hand, he's bochéing his wildflower honey. Now, there is a point where during the bochet, you can get to that brown sugary aroma in a bochéed honey as well. So the lactose thing I get, because usually you would add cream or milk, okay, to your sugar mixture to make it that rich buttery. Of course, in the butter to make it a butterscotch, but brown sugar and that bochéed honey. You think those that you could take it to that level with and get that butterscotch flavor there?
Yeah. So. I know that in the Harry Potter, it's a big deal. Julie.
I'm gonna have to Google that, dude.
I'm not. Yeah,
I have no idea.
I don't recall if they describe the flavor of butterbeer or if it's just simply a nice name. It's supposed to kind of theater of the mind on what it should taste like. But as I think about this, I think about something that is. It kind of like we talked about the watermelon Jolly Rancher. A watermelon Jolly Rancher tastes nothing like a watermelon.
Nothing like that.
People, if they have a piece of watermelon Jolly Rancher, they go, "Oh, that's the watermelon Jolly Rancher."
Yeah.
So, I'm just trying to think here. What's going to spark your mind into thinking that you're having this butter beer?
Is that what they call gaslighting? When you tell enough people that this tastes like watermelon, and they all start believing it, that's what it is? Is that called gaslighting, or what is that?
Close enough.
Yeah. No, that's what the media does. No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're gonna get letters.
Oh my God! Yeah, we're gonna hate mails coming
out. And I didn't say which media. I just said media in general.
Yeah. Make sure you address them to Ryan Richardson at
Mead House North. Yeah, just write Mead House North on a letter. The post office will get it to me. Don't worry about it.
Anyway, thought just occurred to me that might have been a gaslighting thing. You tell enough people that this is a watermelon candy, and they start believing it.
Right.
So.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
You start talking about blue raspberries, and people go to a fruit field, and they say, "Why are these raspberries red?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's gonna evoke your mind to draw some sort of connection to butter beer or butterscotch?
Yeah.
Well, I think the bochéed honey is a great start. I think the honey malt, again, bringing in some honey there, the Carmelade, the oats, good creamy mouthfeel. The lactose is going to also add to the mouthfeel. The vanilla is gonna start to remind you of those flavors. I did not watch this video, but I wonder if they were making some sort of like an alcoholic cream soda and kind of saying like, it's to remind you of a butterbeer. So again, I think that's where you're kind of going. Have any of you guys ever had an egg cream, an old-fashioned egg cream at a soda jerk?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So an egg cream, JD, is there's not egg in it, nor there's there cream in it. It's an old-fashioned soda jerk thing. I mean, you get them East Coast.
You like vanilla cream?
Well, it's like a soda fountain, the old-fashioned soda fountain where the guy's wearing the paper hat and the striped apron.
Believe me, I'm that old. Yes,
you're that old. You're that old. So an egg cream is they put like a scoop of ice cream kind of in it, and then they kind of jerk club soda, and it's really kind of weird that I'm kind of oversimplifying it, but just this combination of like ice cream and club soda kind of creates this it's called an egg cream. It almost tastes like it's got this fine creamy flavor and a little eggy kind of thing in it.
I get
it's
it.
Delicious. It's totally delicious, right? But anyway, with this again, this is why I think he's off to a great start. He's drawing in the flavors that might spark your mind to think that if someone said butterbeer, oh yes, this is great, this is a butterbeer, it's fantastic. I'm getting honey, I'm getting vanilla, I'm getting cream. It all makes sense. Let's do this. So I don't want to dissect it too much to the point where it loses the sense of what we're going for here. But I think you're off to a heck of a start. I think you're a couple of tweaks here or there, but it looks great. It sounds great. I would drink some of this. I mean, believe me, people have sent us recipes that I wouldn't, voluntarily drink. But this one I would.
I would.
I don't know what the dark Belgian candy is doing there, but maybe that, because when I think of dark Belgian candy, and maybe I'm thinking of a darker, like an extra dark, but I started thinking like stone fruits. So I don't know what that dark candy sugar is doing there. I'd get that out of there. And and then I think you're on a hell of a track.
One last comment about this recipe. There's another avenue that you could go down that might be helpful, and that's go to Amaretti.com. And I'm pretty sure they've got a butterscotch, something that you could probably throw into the fermenter, or even secondary for that matter, to get that butterscotch flavor. So you can check that out as well. Moving on here, I'm thinking of making all of this. This takes me back. The backstory about the Mead House and Braggots, goes all the way back. Okay, some of you older listeners might recall Aaron Martin being on the show in the early days, along with Mississippi Chris. This might even be pre-Ryan. I'm not quite sure yet, but Aaron had been experimenting with some Braggots, and he had sent some out to everybody on the show. And that's what hooked me on Braggots. I mean, that was by far the best thing that I ever consumed. I mean, it wasn't a beer, it wasn't a mead, because I'd had enough meads that kind of turned me off because, the Chaucers and some of these others that just didn't excite you, But when I drank Aaron Martin's Braggot that he sent me, it had this nice hoppiness to it. And I was literally sold, and I've been on it since. And so that's the backstory of why we spend a lot of time on Braggots. It's kind of my fault. And besides that, we discovered very early on that it was a very little talked about mead style. Nobody was doing Braggots. In fact, you mentioned Braggot, and everybody said, "What are you talking about?" And so we've done our part. It's been a big effort to try to bring Braggots forward and get more people talking about it and encourage people to get involved with this one category that nobody kind of knew anything about. Even when you go to competitions, a lot of times nobody's participating. They might have the category, but there's no entries because nobody's making Braggots, and or they're so few Braggots that they'd lump them into some other experimental beer or some other category. And then you're up against things that you shouldn't even be competing with. So the Mead House has done its part in trying to push this category to the forefront, and that's kind of been our deal here at the Mead House. My fault. I apologize to all the traditional mead makers out there about it. We don't spend a lot of time on other meads that probably we should. It's not like we haven't talked about them, but I just enjoy pushing this braggot thing out there. So let's get on with it here. I'm thinking about making a hoppy braggot as my next batch. The process I'm thinking will be to treat half the honey like malt syrup and boil it with the hops. I think Ryan will talk to you about that. And then add the rest of the honey once it's cooled to preserve the wild yeast. Oh, I see where he's going. The only time that I've ever made beer, it ended up really hazy. There's no problem with that. As I understand it, this is because I don't own a wort chiller, not necessarily, and just my wort cooled too slowly. I was thinking of using Irish moss to remedy this problem in this next batch. That's going to be up Ryan's alley too, kind of up mine too, maybe even Jeff's. So what? Who cares about the haziness? If it tastes good, nobody's going to care. Okay, the only people who care are judges in some competition that think it ought to be just sparkling clear. But we'll get to that later. I guess I've got a few questions. Is Irish moss the best option for this? And what complications should I be on the lookout for? What is the best way to chill the wort? AQAP. What the hell is that?
As quick as possible.
Okay. So I'm old school. As quick as possible without a wort chiller. Is dry ice water bath better or worse than ice, salt water bath? You can use ice. I mean, you're going to put water. You're going to add water to it anyway, right? Unless you're doing a complete 5-gallon boil. But so anyway, let's start off at the top. Ryan, I think I went to you first with this. You're kind of the braggot guy here at the house. Treat half the honey like it was malt syrup and boil it with the hops. Is that necessary?
No, absolutely not. And, he doesn't mention here, or she, the malt. So I don't know where the malt is. But you do, the hops will be different, if you're making a hop tea versus if you're incorporating them with malt. But no, you do not need to to boil any of your honey. It sounds like what this listener wants to do is use the wild yeast to ferment the braggot, and I commend the listener for that, because we've had some excellent episodes where we've had multiple guests do just that.
Yeah.
And I haven't really done it. I apologize. It's on the list. I haven't done it. It's kind of one of those, am I ready to experiment, to go that far out on the limb and do it. So I commend you. I tip my hat to you, sir or ma'am. And so no, but you don't need to. I mean, just let it cool and then add your honey. And you can add it all up front if you want, depending on the gravity here. I mean, I usually wait till it gets below 100, and then I toss it in at about 100. And I don't think that I can actually guarantee you that the haziness is not because you didn't chill your wort fast enough. I do not own a wort chiller. I paused because I was being clear here. That is not a that is not a backhanded request for any of our suppliers to send me one.
Yeah.
Say
that a little louder. I do not own
a wort chiller, and I am not asking any of our manufacturing friends to send me one. And so the point is, my beers in braggots. My beers, meads, braggots, ciders, etc., are crystal clear. You guys have all had them. You guys have all seen.
Yeah.
Unless you pour it into the cookie, because they're all bottle carbonated, they are crystal clear. Talk about reading your evening newspapers from them. You could shave through them, and so there is nothing about the chilling that is you should be worried about with that. What I'm more thinking about that the yeast. That's the first thing I'm thinking about is the flocculation of the yeast. Is this yeast a high flocculator or not? And is it grabbing everything in that? Now, I've wanted to polish off some braggots before, some meads before, some wines before, and I've used things like 2-stage finings or gelatin to really clean those things out. But anyway, back to the point of this one is, let's talk about the yeast you're using. Number one, I would not worry about dry ice. You can burn yourself with that stuff.
Yeah.
Or ice or salt water, things like that. Just good procedures, good yeast, and you're gonna get clear beer or clear bag. I want to say clear beer because it rhymes, but clear braggot. And I think you're going to be just fine with that. Hoppy, I want to go back to that for just 30 seconds or so. I dig it. I dig the hoppy braggot. Here's what I'm going to tell you, though. Depending on the type of hoppiness you want, Ryan braggots are very hoppy, but they're not bitter.
Yeah.
Versus some braggots that are all bitter and no aroma. So think about the type of hoppiness you want. Is it the bitter hoppy? Is it the aroma hoppy? And then balance the honey out to match that. If you go super bitter, you might want to bump up a lot more honey so that it balances it right out. There's some delicious ones where you get this battle of like sweetness and bitterness, and it's amazing. Or the Ryan braggot, which again is very is very aroma hoppy, and the honey's still there, but it's much drier. So I'll stop. Jeff, take it away.
Sure.
Yeah, Jeff.
You want to cut in, Dave?
Well, yeah, I was gonna. Well, the other part of this. Okay, Ryan kind of touched on it. Okay, the clarity whole thing. I mean, I don't care what it looks like. You know what I mean? It's just put in my glass. Let me drink the stuff. I don't care if it's. I mean, I've had plenty of store-bought craft beers. People are, a lot of these even craft brewers are getting away from this crystal clear, pristine diamond, clear drinks anymore. So I bought a lot of craft beers here lately that have a hazy look to them. I don't care about that at all. So
just to give Jeff a little more to respond to, I really want to tie this into number 6. So I'm going to read number 6 just to let Jeff tie this in. And this is I should have put this one right after that one, but it says, highly hop braggot, thinking about making a braggot with a West Coast IPA hop profile. Have you guys made a 50-plus IBU braggot? How did it turn out? So there you go, Jeff. You can tie those two together, put a bow on them, and I swing on a platter to you. Take it away.
Yeah,
you bet. So let's circle back to the very start when he or she is talking about boiling some honey. Because generally speaking, no, absolutely not. Don't need to. There's one kind of like side case when I would say, okay, you can boil a little honey. If you're making a hopped mead, not a braggot, just a mead with a hop. So like a methylene, where the spice is hops. Then, because you're going to boil those hops for some isomerization and some bitterness, you need some kind of sugar compounds in there to make that work. You just do. So 10%, maybe 25%, I will allow you to boil that and say, okay, that's probably okay. Otherwise, you should not be boiling honey because you're going to be losing the goodness. The floral aromas and all those delicate parts are going to go right away.
Yeah.
We know this. We've talked about this ad nauseum. If you're making a braggot, you've got enough sugar from the grain when you're doing that boiled, and then put the honey in at high krausen, like we've recommended so many times before. You're going to be golden. You're going to keep all those delicate floral aromas. They're going to play nice. Now, let's circle to the high AB, not high AB, ABV, high IBU. Jesus, Jeff. So we're, there are, I have never done like an intentionally very, very hoppy braggot, although it's kind of one of those things on the list. And I think really if you want to do a West Coast IPA style braggot, the best way to start is to look at, kind of a decent clone recipe for a West Coast IPA that you like and kind of go from there. The major thing to think about is how the hop bitterness and those hop flavors are going to play with honey. And, the one that I was drinking last week, was it Let's Be Homies? That was a collaboration between Stone and Deschutes, is kind of a perfect example of how I would handle that. I mean, it's got a pronounced honey flavor. It's got really interesting, like, aromatics, especially from the blackberry honey. But the IPA style is there. That very pronounced bitterness, those kind of, especially the West Coast style hops with the piney character or the citrusy character, it can work. It's very interesting. At least that one was. I think it can be done well, and I would absolutely say, yeah, go for it. All right.
And what about the Irish moss thing? He's asking if this is the best option to clear the beer. Now, Ryan mentioned, everything from the two-step thing to the the gelatin moss. And I don't know, another one's like a fried egg or something, or egg whites or some damn thing.
Irish moss is yesterday. Irish moss is yesterday. Welsh moss.
Yeah.
So you guys know I worked at a homebrew store for like a year and a half, and we did our own like proprietary beer kits. Yeah. Every beer kit came with Irish moss for the boil.
Yeah.
It's just kind of there, like, maybe it's been drilled into me now, but I don't really consider doing a beer without a little bit of Irish moss at this point. And at the end of the day, the same token, I don't necessarily go for the clearest of beers or clearest of meads or whatever when I'm trying to brew. If I let it sit long enough, I know what'll happen. Am I patient enough? Not necessarily. And honestly, like some of the first meads that I made, I swear, if I found that I liked the flavor better if I like shook it up a little bit so that the little bit of yeast sediment sitting at the bottom of the bottle when it was conditioned or settled out or whatever got mixed back into suspension, it tasted better to me. And in fact, I brought some meads to a friend of a friend who was like hosting a party and had invited us when we were out of town in, I think, Texas years and years ago. And I was like, so yeah, there's mead yeast on the bottom of this. You want to pour gently, and he's like, oh, well, I know what to do with this, and he just shakes the living shit out of it until it's cloudy as hell. I was like, yeah, that's how I like it, actually.
There you go. Well, I don't think, in like 1482 AD, I don't think people were that concerned about clear meads. You know what I mean?
No. I think they were concerned with alcohol content and making something that would last.
That's it.
Yeah.
Who gives a damn?
It's calories and happy feelings, my friends. It's calories and happy feelings.
That's it. So anyway, good stuff on that one. I hope we answered your question there, guy or gal. But anyway, looking for braggot recommendations. Just bought a kegging system with a
with 2 kegs and want to fill them with some low ABV sparkling meads. I'm making my first hydromel and using the Evergarden Kveik yeast, one that's racked off of the yeast. Once that's racked off the yeast, I want to start my first low ABV braggot. Now you're talking Ryan Braggot here, directly on the yeast cake. Oh, that's right up Brian's alley too. But I don't know what direction to go. Actually, Ryan or Jeff, we'll slow this one over to Jeff. I'm looking for something in the beer ABV range, Jeff, 5 to 6%, relatively simple, not too many hop additions at different times, and will work well with Evergarden. The elderflower braggot sounds interesting, but I'm open to other suggestions. Also, I have over a gallon of maple syrup, some dark, some medium to use up. So maybe something along that might be put. All right, let me tell you something about maple syrup. All right, I think there's a great misnomer out there that if you just dump a couple of kegs of, or a couple of gallons, 5 gallons of maple syrup in your mead, that it's going to taste like maple syrup. No, that's not going to work. You can put maple, after you stabilize and add maple syrup in a secondary, and maybe pick up a little maple syrup, but the sugar in maple syrup is going to get used first. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's like what's that's like nitromethane to a race car, right? That's like adding nitromethane to a yeast. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You honey sugar, you just sit over here in the pits for a little while. We're gonna suck up all this other stuff first. So maple syrup, no, dude, save up your pancakes. I'm telling you. Anyway, Jeff,
if you really want to use maple syrup and you've got a kegging system, what I would do, honestly, make a blueberry mead.
There you go.
Stabilize it.
Yeah,
stabilize some of that maple syrup, carbonate that. I bet that would be a hit.
Oh, yeah, you think?
That said, we're talking about braggots, and I have never used the Evergarden. There are 30-odd different strains of Kveik, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen, like lists and Excel files on a couple of the Kveik brewing forums, and if I had more ambition and, just more willingness to reach out to people, I could probably source some different strains, but I'm really happy with what I've been getting from Omega, so I've just been using that. Yeah. That said, I would, if you're looking for something that is relatively easy without a lot of hop additions, I would kind of just go classics with this. Go for a basic German or Czech Pils style. Use Pils and malt. Use a honey that you like, and use a noble hop variety. Saz is the classic for Czech. There's Tettnang or I think it's Hersbrucker for the German Pilsner. Those are great options. They have not only the bitter hoppy notes, they also have a lot of floral notes that, if you're liking the idea of an elderflower braggot, the floral notes from those might be interesting to you. You could also take a kind of a lighter approach with some other different hop additions, like Eastgate Goldens has a lot of floral notes to it that are very pleasant, or off the top of my head, there are a lot of fun lighter ones too, in kind of that New Zealand range, like Waikiki or Pekka. Used sparingly, without the massive bitterness. I think you could make some fun stuff with that.
Yeah. He continues on here, just one little paragraph down. Also a recipe I found for elderflower braggot calls for 1 pound of elderflowers. I'm hoping that's fresh, because dried elderflowers is going for like $7 for 2 ounces, and I don't particularly feel like spending $56 on one ingredient for this recipe. Dude, we spent a lot more than that on some of our projects. Let me caution you one thing about the fresh. Okay, you want to make damn sure that if you're getting fresh elderflowers, that they are pesticide free. Okay, the last thing you want to do is introduce some sort of pesticide. And even if you live in a city and your elderflower bush is chemical free, I wouldn't even trust it. Okay, if you live in a city like mine where road dust and that kind of thing, if you live on a major street, I wouldn't do it. Okay, I would more trust a reputable dried herb outlet like Mountain Rose Herbs and use their products before I would ever consider using some sort of a fresh elderflower. But Jeff, this might be another one up your alley.
Sure.
Fresh elderflowers. That's sending off freaking light bulbs in my mind.
I have to assume that's asking for fresh elderflower, because putting any kind of dried flower at an entire pound, even in a 5-6 gallon batch, seems like a lot. I've played with a little bit of lavender and used like a half an ounce per gallon, and that seemed like plenty. And elderflower is a very light, very delicate flavor. You might need a little bit more than that, but I don't think you need a whole pound for that unless you're talking about, freshly picked, freshly foraged flowers. Absolutely, yes, be careful with how you're picking them. I mean, even if you live in the suburbs like I do, I wouldn't put anything foraged from my front yard into a mead, because there's traffic. Not a lot, but there's traffic.
Yeah.
Your backyard's probably safer. But yeah, no, a reputable grower like Mountain Rose Herbs, or if you know a flower grower at your local farmer's market that might be able to source the amount of lavender or elderflower or rose petals, whatever that you're looking for, that would also be a great route. Probably, as long as they're not spraying their stuff with pesticides, and they should be very friendly. They're really not.
All right, so last one for tonight, guys. We'll finish it up with this one. Ryan, go ahead, Ryan.
I don't get a comment on that last one.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. No.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'm looking for something in the ABV range of 5 to 6, relatively simple, not too many hop additions. You're describing a Ryan Braggett.
Pretty much.
The definition of a Ryan Braggett. Throw 3 pounds of malt extract on there, 3 pounds of honey on there, hops, and you're good to go. And then, Jeff, I completely agree with you on that. That's got to be fresh elderflowers. The only thing I would say is I don't know. I'm sure you could find this if you did an internet search, but what does fresh flowers, when dried, reduce down to by weight? So does it go from 1 pound to 1 ounce? And then if you want to, do that. Go buy, like JD said, go to Mountain Rose Herbs and buy 1 ounce of dried elderflowers and just use that in its place.
Yeah,
it might be a little bit different, but I mean, you're gonna, it'll be good. So, all right, that's all I had on that one.
Very good. So I'm digging this next one. I just wanted to get this one in before we slam the door shut here tonight. Potato Braggett. Is this combination of words repugnant? I don't know, but I'll tell you something here in a minute. I've said it before on the show. I mashed a good pile of freshly dug red potatoes from the garden with some pale malt and bolstered it with some lovely sunflower autumn wildflower honey after the boil chill. Soachi Ace in its lemony goodness stands for bittering aroma and dry hop. It was fermented at 13 degrees centigrade as a lager with 3470. I believe those are temperatures. If I taste the tart and earthy sensation of biting a potato, biting into a potato. Oh my God. This is going like off the rails here. Potato skin and the floral element of honey. Potatoes and honey. Dude. Okay, so, and a nice malty backbone. It's weird. Yes, it is. It's 5% and it's delicious. Wow. Have you guys done oddball braggots, and how did they turn out, Ryan?
Oh, jeez. The oddest ball braggots that I've done have been the pantry cleanout braggots, and the one that had the most, I guess, oddball ingredients was when I threw in some wild rice, some oats, a bunch of different malts. And did that, or the 14-pound braggot. The 14-pound braggot turned out really well, which was
that was like everything.
It was 14 pounds of malts,
everything.
And I think there were like 12 different malts that together made like 14 pounds, and that's what I used. So, the pantry cleanout braggots are the most, and they are all crazy. They're off the wall a little bit. Some are really good, and some are just pretty good. But they're all good. And I've never done potatoes. There is a distillery here that actually does a potato distilled beverage. I don't know if it's vodka or whatever.
I was gonna say, don't they call that vodka?
But yeah, I don't know if they do call it vodka. I think they might call it something.
Yeah,
something
in other
weird,
countries they call it vodka.
Yeah, right. But no, I've never done the potatoes, but I was a little bit inspired by our good buddies down in Georgia about the chickpea water, the aquafaba.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying some of that.
Yep.
Like I said, the next time there's a Lebanese festival and I buy a 5-gallon pail of chickpeas,
yeah.
I might just strain them off and use that water as the liquid. But no, I don't have anything quite as crazy as that yet. Just it's a lot of malt, some oats, some wild rice, but nothing that's too far out there. But it sounds delicious. Congratulations to you. That's a great one to hear about. Now he says he mashed a pile of fresh potatoes. He mashed a pile of potatoes. Do you think he mashed them at like 165, or do you think he mashed them with a wire mash?
Yeah, with a potato masher. The only thing that I've tasted, and I haven't actually made anything with vegetables, but the only thing that I've mentioned this on the show before. The only thing that I've tasted, I had a mead made of vegetables. Now Ash Fishbein, Sap House Meadery. In his former life, he was a chef, and he came up with a mead. It was a vegetable mead, your classic like mirepoix, carrots, onions, garlic, the whole 9 yards. Okay, one of his employees used to love to drink it. Okay, and I was lucky when I was out there in New Hampshire here a few months back, or actually last year. I was lucky enough to get the last remaining bottle of this Mirepoix mead that Ash had, and it did have a lovely taste. I mean, it was a vegetable, almost like drinking a vegetable soup, only it was alcoholic. Okay, that was the only difference. So. What I did with it is I put it in a pan. I think I braised some chicken with it. I can't remember. It's been a while back. But it came out really nice. So, don't think for a minute that you can't use that, extra onion you got, or that head of garlic, or those, what's left of the carrots in the bottom drawer of your refrigerator, and that leftover stock of celery. I mean, do it. Throw it together. What I would do is boil the vegetables together, use that as your water, and then find a light flavored, a light honey. And we're not talking a lot. You just want to create that alcohol, I guess, and get to fermenting. And see what you come up with. I like where this guy's going with potato thing. I love potatoes. My doctor says quit eating so damn much of them. I told him you're crazy. But so anyway, so we're going to end it right there, guys. What a lovely night here talking about brackets, and we're not even done yet. We got much more to go here, so we'll save those for next time. But it's been a lot of fun here talking about bracket night here at the house. And thanks to everybody for hanging out with us in this episode. So we're going to cut it off right here. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and flip the lights off? Jeff, slam the door shut. And we'll see everybody back here at the house for episode number 218 next week. We're gone.